On September 22nd, 2015, I started a little experiment. Keeping a journal of everything that I do. Wake up in the morning and go through my regular routine. Write down what I did and the time. Do some work on the blog. Write down what I did and the time. Go to the gym. Write down what I did and the time. Have lunch. Write down what I did and the time. I know it sounds boring, monotonous, and super time consuming, but believe it or not, my purpose with these videos is not to turn your life into a robotic hell. It's the opposite. It's to help you find unconventional ways to live a one-of-a-kind life that only you can live. And to be totally honest, keeping a journal of everything you do is one of the most powerful ways you can do so. At least that's the case for me. As I'll explain in this video, it's turned me from a time spender into a time investor. It's helped me strengthen one of my most important relationships that I think everyone should work on more. It's given me way more free time. It's turned me into a detective for the truth. And it's given me a priceless memory bank. Way, way more than I expected 2,000 days ago when I started experimenting with writing down everything I do. At the beginning of my experiment, I had a hard time getting in the habit of writing down everything I do. I'd busily race around doing this and that, and only a couple hours later remember, oh crap, I gotta write down what I did. Then when I'd sit down to write it down, I couldn't actually remember what I did. I would know that I worked hard, but if I couldn't even remember 2 hours later what I just done, was it really that important? No. So this taught me that most of my busyness was actually a waste of time. I was spending my time and not investing it. It was hard to write down all the little things that I was frittering away my time with. And it made me feel bad. I felt way better when I invested my time wisely, using it in big blocks that could build on top of each other. And it just so happened that it was easier to write down too. So I started planning out everything I do in big blocks. I stopped multitasking, and I started to become noticeably more productive, all thanks to writing everything I did down. Where exactly was my time going? Because I'm a numbers nerd and a recovering Excel junkie from my corporate career, I decided to input all of my time logs into a spreadsheet. I honestly thought I was working at least 60-hour weeks, especially now that I was becoming more productive investing my time instead of spending it. But the numbers told a different story. When I added it up, I was only working about 35 hours of real work a week. Wild. But you know what's even wilder? I realized that 35 hours of real work a week is a lot. People who I've convinced to get on the time tracking bandwagon later on have never managed to do 35 hours a week early on. And if I try to work more, like 40, 45, 50 hours, my brain gets fried and I feel super burnt out the next week. 35 hours a week is 5 hours a day. Take away 9 hours for sleep, and that leaves me 10 hours of free time every single day. So thanks to time tracking, I realized I could push my brain to its max limit and still enjoy 10 hours of free time every day. That's a super freeing feeling. Reviewing my time tracking journal felt like reviewing the work done by someone else. You what? You watched 3 straight hours of YouTube on Thursday? Wow, last week you did 5 workouts and got a personal best? Great work, keep it up. And this made me realize that I'm essentially an employee for my future self. And this was huge, life-changing, really. Writing down everything I did made me extra cognizant of the fact that my decisions today affect my future self tomorrow. So I started consciously trying not to let future me down. Less alcohol, more sleep. Less procrastination, more productivity. You get the idea. And the more my past self made his future self proud, the more inclined he's been to pass on the favor. So my relationship with future me gets better and better. And so do I. And so does my life. For more on this, see my previous video on future self relationship therapy. I've always been big on self-improvement. Reading articles and books, listening to podcasts, watching TED Talks, the usual. But I'd forget most of it and implement very little because I was going about it without any real structure. In retrospect, I realized I was mostly wasting my time until I started writing things down. I realized that if I'm gonna write down everything I do, I should also write down everything I learned. I'd long since graduated from school, but I still want to learn. And how do you learn if you don't take notes? So that's what I did. It's a pain in the butt to go back through a podcast, book, or video and take down notes of everything I want to remember, but this helped it stick in my mind. And it turned my growing library of notes into a second brain. Things I learned started connecting with each other, and it just kept expanding. This is gonna sound kind of weird, but I started feeling like I was a detective for the truth. My case, how to live the very best possible life. So like any good detective, I started looking tirelessly for clues. And every time I found one, I'd write it down and try to connect it with the rest, creating a giant web and getting closer and closer to cracking the case. I know I'll never solve the mystery of how to live the best possible life, but thanks to writing things down, I feel like I'm getting closer than ever. And I'm honestly having a lot of fun taking on such a challenging case. This is the biggest benefit of writing everything down. And it's also the one that took the longest for me to realize. It only clicked when Kim and I were talking with some friends who were planning on visiting Japan. I was trying to remember what we did to recommend stuff to them when I realized, I'd written everything down. And we actually went to Japan only a few weeks after I started my experiment with writing everything down. So I pulled up my notes, and the whole trip just came rushing back to me. Details of specific foods, people, and places. Reading one word would rekindle a whole memory. My friends were grateful for the tips, and I was even more grateful for having preserved those memories for myself. And I wished I had similar notes from previous experiences. I wish I could go back and see the details of the people and places I went during my pre-retirement tour in 2013. And I especially wish I had the details of that night of December 27th, 2013, when I reconnected with Kim. But I don't. The memories that I still have are hazy at best. Most are gone, but not anymore. I have all the precious details of the day I proposed to Kim in 2019, and of our wedding in 2020, and all the days in between and thereafter too. And when we have our kid later this year, I'm gonna have every single one of those memories written down. I can't tell you how priceless that is to me. Writing down everything I do has also slowed down time. It's improved my relationship with other people, and it's made me more patient. But we're not going to get into those other benefits today. I hope the 5 benefits that we already covered are enough to convince you to experiment like I did with writing everything you do down. Because it's really not as crazy, time-consuming, or boring as it sounds. If it were, I would not be on my 2000th straight day of doing it. And I wouldn't be hoping that I will continue doing it for another 20,000 days. Because I hope that my 85-year-old self looks back on this video and thinks, way to go, young buck. And thanks to having wisely and productively invested my time and enjoyed tons of free time at the same time, he'll have a huge priceless memory bank and have come very close to knowing what it is to live his very best life. And all of that will be thanks in no small part to the simple, boring habit of writing everything I do down. Please give it a try. Oh yeah, I can't believe I forgot to write this one down on my script. But if you found value in this video, can you please give it a thumbs up? Because that way YouTube will put it in front of more people's faces so that they might consider the idea of writing everything down too. And it also just makes me happy. And speaking of happy, if you want more ideas, experiments, and inspiration to get unstuck from the status quo and make the most of your trip through your life, fun, unconventional stuff like self-motivation for grown-ups, undiluted comfort zone talk, future self-relationship therapy, fasting, and a lot more to come, subscribe to this channel, The Unconventional Route. Thanks.